All right, so thank you for coming, everyone. We'll give it a couple of minutes to see if any students are coming in, and if you want to just kind of check in to let us know how you're doing this week, how your Halloween went last night. All I did was make cookies and watch Hocus Pocus.
Did anybody dress up? You could put it in the chat or unmute yourself.
I want to welcome everyone to our workshop, our resume building. So we have some special guests that will be going over resumes. And this is what our agenda looks like. I'm going to go over our staff office hours. We will have a presentation by American Indian alumni, the AIA. We'll probably break out into groups if that's part of the activities. At the end, we'll have question and answers, and then we'll end the session for you all. So as we discuss every workshop, that we do have office hours, and you can schedule it the link on the screen. So we use Calendly. So my office hours are Thursdays from 11 to 1, but also there is a schedule in there for Monday through Friday. Carol's is also in there. Don't forget to make a one-on-one with all of us or one of us. Kiara and Bronson are available as well for their office hours. You need to contact them for your one-on-ones or just to get advice on the geoscience project, or if you need them to write you a letter of recommendation, that goes for Carol and myself. And with that being said, I'd like to introduce Daniel Sistiaga, who is the Vice President of the American Indian Alumni. If I get that, I think I got that right. So I will hand it off to you, Danny.
Awesome. How's everyone doing? Good. Rudy, it's been a while. It's good to see you.
I know, good to see you, sir.
Addie, it's great to see you. Thank you for chiming in. Alrighty. Before we get started, I just want to take a view of the room. So how many of you all have ever created a resume? You can just give you a little thumbs up if you got one, or if you want to say something, by all means. Okay. Awesome. And how many of you, this is your first time ever talking about a resume? What is a resume? Okay. So maybe we have some seasoned veterans here and some newbies. It's awesome because resumes can become overwhelming, and I am here to tell you, please don't become overwhelmed. There's a lot of fun times and really good work that can go into a resume. So with that being said, let's see, what time is it? It's all evening time. So I'll just go ahead and introduce myself. So Skukhudinik, I'm Nyanchugik Daniel Sistiaga. Good evening, my name is Daniel Sistiaga, and I currently serve as the Vice President of the American Indian Alumni. Excuse me, it's all hot, my glasses are getting foggy. Of the American Indian Alumni Club at the U of A. That's done in my spare time. And in my actual day-to-day job, I serve as the Special Projects and Initiatives Manager for Thanathom Community College. We also have someone else here. I want to just give the opportunity for John Rios to introduce himself as well.
Thank you, Danny. Skukdash, Shapanchugit, Jonathan Rios, Wakchuksana, Amjud. Good evening, everybody. My name is John Rios, and I currently serve as the president for the American Indian Alumni. I want to thank NASEP staff for inviting us here into space tonight, be able to provide this opportunity and resource for resumes. I know when our board talks about our previous experience and why we create, certain workshops and activities that we do, we always have the mindset of, what we wish was told to us when we were students. And that's what we hope to deliver tonight, of giving you some resources, some information, kind of to get a step ahead so you can set that right foot forward, moving forward to take advantage of different opportunities. So again, thank you, NASEP. I want to welcome everybody to tonight's workshop. Danny will be leading the workshop tonight. I won't be able to stay on the whole night, but I just want to say thank you again. Sapo.
All right. Thank you, John. So way that we're going to do this, and we're going to just get used to this chat function. So I'm all for, if you have any questions, please just feel free to interrupt. So you can put a question in the chat, or if you want to, you can definitely unmute yourself and say, hey, Danny, I got a question, or can you elaborate on that? I have no problem having you all jump in. So with that, we're going to go ahead and just get started. Let's get this correct. Can you all see my screen? All right, cool. So again, my name is Danny. Welcome to tonight's workshop. Again, NASEP, thank you for having us. I am for Yuma Kutzon. I am from the Yuma area in Arizona, on the border of California and Arizona. And I attended the University of Arizona as an undergraduate back in 2007, finished in 2012, and again as a master's student finishing up in 2018. So I bring a wealth of knowledge and in my role at TOCC as a manager and onboarding different folks, and John too as well, being able to provide just definite feedback that we see as resumes come across our desk, and we're working with expanding our employee pool, employees at our sites, and then just in terms of like scholarship and different things that we're involved in with the community. So this is really where this whole conversation around resume workshops really comes from. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in. So tonight's outline, what is a resume? Why is it important? We're going to do a little bit of a personal inventory activity. We're going to talk a little bit about some statistics regarding resumes, and then we're going to help you get started. And then we're just going to jump into some examples. Natalia is going to talk a little bit about this, but I believe this is one of a two-part series, and we'll address that later on. But for the most part, we want to get you all started. And for those of you who actually have resumes or have something in the works, helping you go through the process of refining and perfecting your resume for submission, whether it's for jobs or scholarships or anything else above. So we got a lot to cover tonight. So yeah, I'm excited. So first and foremost, what is a resume? Quite simply, a resume is just a snapshot of you. And I'm going to say this, yes, this is you, and all that you have to offer to a person, a group, somebody that may be interested in you, whether it's bringing you on as a member of a team, through different volunteer efforts, part of like a job, or even and receiving a scholarship. So what are they used for? In this sense, jobs are used, resumes are used for jobs. So they're a way for employers to get a snapshot of your skills and experience. They can be used for scholarships. So resumes will allow different scholarship committees to get a better understanding of your values and your involvement. Volunteer, so different organizations, nonprofit organizations may request a background, a resume to get a little bit of a better background on you and your abilities. Internships, so if you all are interested in internship, resumes are key in defining roles that you can excel in. And then awards. So oftentimes there are different awards out in the community, and resumes are a really good opportunity for selection committees to be able to show the commitment that you have to your community. So why are resumes important? Anybody want to just throw something out there? Anyone want to share?
Because it gives them an idea of what you are, or who the person you are, and what you accomplished.
Thank you, Addie. I appreciate it.
That's a great answer, Addie. I was gonna say something similar, is that like sometimes we don't have an opportunity to like do interviews or groups need a way to kind of interview you without interviewing you. And so sometimes that tells our story in a very short, concise way, but very much agree with Addie's answer.
Thank you, Rudy, for sharing.
Danny,
Yes.
this is John. I was going to mention too, kind of similar to Rudy of, this helps us stand out from one another, for the applicant pool. And I mentioned this, with AIA, we have scholarships specifically for Native American students. So we know everybody's Native American, but there's different parts of the scholarships where certain times of the year when we're selecting applications, it may boil down to a resume, and it's like depends on what sticks out or what notable accomplishments are on there. That's why we make a decision based off of those resumes sometimes. But that's why I say it helps you stand out from the others.
Thank you, John. Anyone else want to add?
Doesn't a resume help show your strengths, your skills that you have acquired over your education and experience, life experience?
Most definitely. And we're going to talk a little bit about those life experiences. And I really want to thank you, Natalia, for bringing that up, because whether or not you have work experience, you have volunteer experience, your lived experience, basically your day-to-day, how you live, can be turned into little things that can be put onto your resume. And from a Native perspective or an Indigenous perspective, things as simple as babysitting, helping clean around the house, cooking for the family, watching after your little brothers and sisters or cousins. All of those things can be added to your resume, whether or not you realize it. So we're going to talk a little bit about that later on. But yes, to answer all of your questions or all of your responses, all those are really great and they are very important. Those are some of the key things in which resumes are so important. So they allow your network, and I say this in a broad sense, your network. So whether you're applying for a job, you're getting interviewed without getting interviewed, right? You're applying for a scholarship, or you're trying to just share your story. It allows them to understand who you are, whether they're onboarding you, working with you as a potential partner or a collaborator, awarding you, like in this case, like let's say you're up for an award or giving to in terms of like a scholarship. Resumes, they can become overwhelming, and it is good to have one on file and to invest the time and effort as consistently as possible. Now, I always have this conversation, especially with my Native students, about talking about themselves. I will say this, and I always understand this. Folks that come from a Native background or Indigenous background tend to have a hard time speaking about their own self. I think in a lot of Native communities, we're brought up and taught to value this whole concept of community, right? And always looking out for others, and we're not just focused on our own individual selves, and we're doing things for the greater community and always want to give back to our community. And that communal sense is what we're grown and what we have an appreciation and a value for. When it comes in terms of a resume, you have to be able to have the conversation with yourself and be able to bring yourself up to light. Now, this is a little bit uncomfortable for folks because if you're like myself, you don't like talking about yourself a lot, and you're always just kind of like myself. I like to be in the background and just kind of be that little go-getter, the engine that could. And I don't know, some people will say I like to be in the front and the highlight of everything, but I typically don't. I like to be one of the movers and shakers behind the scenes because I like to see the bigger picture, and I don't like the front end of stuff. But so in that sense, resumes can be a little bit daunting and they can be overwhelming because you have to be able to speak about yourself in a manner that you may not be used to, meaning you have to sell yourself, right? You have to talk about your strengths, your abilities, the things that you can accomplish, the things that you know you've done, awards, your achievements in schools, your volunteer efforts, your work experience. And anything that you have done that would be considered to be put on a resume is something that you want to be able to pull out. And we're going to do a little bit of an activity today to allow you to explore that. So as we're gonna jump into our activity tonight, I hope you all can in some possible fashion be able to write, use something to write with. So beginning any type of resume, there's a thing that we like to call a personal inventory. Have any of you ever taken a personal inventory before? No? Okay.
Not yet. Not yet.
Not yet. Natasha, thank you. Addie, thank you. So personal inventories, they can be very, very useful. And actually, I just went through this whole exercise with a good friend of mine because he had a lot of trouble trying to eloquently talk about himself. He felt very, very uncomfortable and he didn't like the idea. And so we had to just figure out who he was as a person, things that he valued and things that he knew that he was strong at. So your personal inventory is an opportunity for you to just kind of take all of those in and be able to say, hey, I'm good at X, Y, and Z. I do this, I can do this, and I can do this. Again, very different from probably the way that you were raised or values that you may have grown up with or things that you appreciate. But in this case, for a resume, it is focused on yourself. So when you're thinking about your personal inventory, this is going to be solely based on yourself and not necessarily other folks. So this isn't your sister, this isn't your cousin, your auntie, your uncle, your mom or your dad. This is focused on you. And you definitely will have those conversations when you get into like personal statements or other things of that nature and creating like a job packet. But really your resume is a highlight of yourself. They can be used as communication tools. Resumes are communication tools, right? They're a demonstration of most of the time, and they're presented in front of a specific audience. So I think Rudy hit the nail on the head with this one. Sometimes there's opportunities for resumes to be presented to themselves, and a person may not be able to interview, but it allows the committee or a group of people to be able to get a better understanding of who you are in that sense and essentially tell your story. So again, resumes are typically created for a specific audience, whether again, you're applying for a certain job, you're applying for a certain scholarship, you're applying for an award or an internship. That's one key aspect to be able to keep in mind. So for this activity, we're going to focus on these 5 different areas, okay? Now, if you don't have anything in these areas, that's totally fine. You're not going to share this with everybody. Although if you would like to share, I would most definitely welcome it. But for this one, you're going to focus on your abilities, your talents, your achievements, your awards, and your experience. Sorry, I just got caught off guard. I hope I spelled that right. So for this one activity, we're gonna have you come up with 1 to 3 things in each of these categories. So your abilities can be something like, I have a demonstrated leadership ability. I can public speak. I am a really good organizer. I have just amazing social skills. I'm a public speaker. I don't have a problem getting in front of the crowd. I'm a team player, those different abilities. Your talents are things that you're definitely good at. So what are you good at? Are you a musician? Little bit of background. I am a musician. I played and marched with the Pride of Arizona way back in the day. So I was part of the University of Arizona's band, but I would say that I had a talent. Like I was a musician and I still play my horn every now and then. One of my talents is just cracking the ice. I feel like I'm a pretty good icebreaker. I like to go and just talk with folks and see and get to know people. Achievements. So for this one, this could be something like, I set a goal for myself and, I was able to achieve it. So let's say, I really value good nutrition and I set out to either lose weight or something of that nature. And I hit a goal, a marker, a benchmarker that was really important to me. Or I was involved in this community project and we achieved, I don't know, let's just say right now at the top of my head, I was a part of this community advisory board, and we set out to get a community in South Tucson vaccinated, and we achieved an 80% COVID vaccination rate, right? Or I set a goal for myself to get perfect attendance, and I achieved perfect attendance throughout the semester. Awards are something that you can definitely hit on. So if you are in school, maybe you got honor roll, you're in principal's honor roll. If you're in college, like a dean's list, or an honorary mention on a dean's list or a chancellor's list, wherever you're at. But your, I will touch on that right away. So thank you, Autumn. So your abilities, again, your abilities are things that you're able to do. So like, let's say you have an ability to be able to speak to a crowd, or, you know, you're able to do, let me just pull this up. So you have like leadership skills, you know, I'm an organizer, I have really good time management, things of that nature.
Danny, should we give each section about 3 minutes for the students to have time
Yeah.
to write down?
I most definitely, I'm just kind of going through and explaining.
Okay.
And then lastly, so like those are awards that like, again, something that you've been awarded, maybe you were involved with your tribe and you got like a community service award, or even if you're awarded a scholarship, those can be considered awards as well. And then your experience. So whether that's like volunteer experience, working in your community, any job that you may have held. So for this activity, I'm going to go ahead and give you about 3 or 4 minutes to just look at each one of these. You can see my little pointer. 3 or 4 minutes to look at all these different sections and just bullet point. You don't need to go into too much detail. Just list things under these 4 or 5 areas. And to help you all out, so just to give you some more examples. Addie, if you could potentially just write it down. This is for you. We're just doing this personal this personal inventory or this intake for yourself. So if you have the ability to write it on a piece of paper or just type it to yourself, like in a text message or in your notes, go ahead and do it there. We don't need to type it in the chat. So I just kind of threw some examples between abilities and talents, and they can definitely be somewhat similar, and that's totally fine. Another ability that I forgot to mention could be something like you're able to speak your own language. If you're fluent in your language or you are able to understand, maybe you're able to write your own language. That's also something to keep in mind as well. And we got about 2 minutes left. And John, we're going to be able to add another award to your resume. John was just announced as the Tucson Hispanic Chamber of Commerce 40 under 40 recipient.
Thanks, Danny.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
We have a group chat, and I just seen Charlene announce that right now, so I didn't even know. She knew before I knew, so thank you, Danny.
Very cool.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congrats, John. All right, we have about 15 seconds left, so get those
Apple, Danny.
last thoughts on. And this presentation, I've shared it with Natalia and Carol, so I can go ahead and send you the final version of this, so you can send it out as well in an email to all your folks. All righty. 3, 2, and 1. Thank you all for working on that. So for this, would anybody like to share? Does anybody want to share anything? You don't have to. We don't have to if you don't want to. Totally putting you all on the spot. He said no, I didn't have to.
So I'll share. For abilities, I put I'm a quick learner. For talents, I put play cello. And for achievement, I published an article in the Yuma Sun, and that's where I got to, and I didn't get to awards or experience.
Okay. Thank you.
So what's kind of cool about that you mentioned that, Natalia, is that like I didn't know that you played the cello. And so you know, and it seemed like Daniel might have been surprised too. But I think that's like one of the cool things about a resume, right? Is that sometimes, again, for even people that we know or we've been working with, we might be surprised at some of the experiences, talents, achievements that they have listed on a resume. And so often I think we're in that situation that Daniel mentioned where sometimes we feel like, oh, we can't talk about ourselves because our parents have told us not to brag, right? That's not something that's comfortable for us. And so sometimes we don't share all of that. And sometimes it can come across on something like a resume.
I love it. Natalia, we're going to get the band back together. I love it.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for sharing. And I just want to point out to all of our students here, just a reminder that this isn't definitive. So resumes, again, only capture a certain moment in time. They're on ongoing process. So you, as you're starting your resume and you're developing some sort of template and format, they should be updated regularly as you're gaining new experience, as you're volunteering for certain things, if you're writing, publishing things, if as you're adding more experience to your personal and professional lives, those things should be added onto your resume. Alrighty, so we're going to go ahead and continue to move on. So again, I wanted to throw some statistics out there because resumes can sometimes get a bad rap, but just because of the overwhelming nature. But when they're done right and they're done appropriately, they can make all the difference in terms of being able to land a job, being able to land a scholarship, or being able to, land that internship. So all the stats that I'm going to provide, they're here to help guide you. Don't let them get you down, or don't get overwhelmed by them. Don't be scared. Don't let this information kind of sell you on just being scared. You should still learn how to sell yourself and be able to work the system. Again, it's all a part of that refining process, which we'll go through in a little while. But again, these are just some quick stats that I wanted to throw out at you all. So in the terms of job market, 77% of employers say that seasoned workers should not use a single page resume, if you didn't know that. And this is typical because you'll hear a lot of folks say that as you're getting started, or a good rule of thumb for a resume is at least 1 page. But if you all have been working if you've been employed for a very long time and you have a wealth of knowledge and experience, you don't necessarily have to keep it just to 1 page. But if you're just getting started, if you're barely working on your first resume, or you have 1 or 2 just jobs under your belt, try to keep it on a 1 page. Best practices, so using a heading statement on what you bring to the table, right? Use at least 1 additional resume section to back up your qualifications, and you can customize a resume. We're going to talk a little bit about this, but we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. But a cover letter, being able to utilize that in addressing a hiring manager by name, or even providing a link to an online platform, such as like a blog or a website. So yeah, those are some just really cool practices. 63% of recruiters want to receive resumes that are tailored to the position. So you'll hear oftentimes, and probably all of us professionals in the room will tell you, that your resume, you can potentially create a blanket resume that has all of your information, more or less like a CV, but be able to pull things out, extract information to be able to make sure it's tailored for the job that you are applying for, the internship or the scholarship. 3.14 minutes. So most recruiters spend an average of about 3 minutes reading a candidate's resume, but they have generally made up their mind within the first minute. So when you're competing against others and you're submitting resumes for different jobs, know that hiring managers typically will just do a brief scan and find things that stick out to them and be able to, again, extract that information. But typically their minds are made up about your resume within the first minute or so. 75% of human resource managers have caught a lie on a resume. So I bring this up because your resume should be as truthful as possible. I mean, not as possible, it should be truthful, right? Again, you're selling your information, you're telling the story of you, how all this relates, and it's your story. So the last thing you want to be able to do is, or the last thing you want to do is to be able to sell yourself short and not tell the truth. 59% of recruiters will reject a candidate because of poor grammar or a spelling error. This is important to note. So I and probably John, Rudy, as managers to the different programs, you're receiving resumes and whatnot. We always tell our students, and the groups that I work with, is part of creating a resume and getting a baseline and what you want to be able to submit to an employer is going through the process of revision. So you have to be able to accept the opportunity to edit and be able to refine and build upon a lot of those corrections and be able to have a final draft. Typically, when folks say that they have a final draft, it's pretty much not their final draft until it's gone to at least 2 or 3 revisions. So if somebody comes at you, or we ask for your resume, or somebody ever asked for your resume and you want it to get edited by somebody, which that's part of the process. If somebody comes to you and says, hey, I have corrections, or you need to think about this, it's nothing bad against you. It is only helping you to make yourself a stronger candidate. So please don't take it in a sense that they're attacking you or discouraging you from anything. It's just a matter of helping, again, put yourself in the best light because of things like this. Deal breakers. So I wanted to throw this out there. 77% of managers, hiring managers, said that a deal breaker is typos or bad grammar. 35% unprofessional email address. So this is my shameless plug to you all. If you have an email that is unprofessional or isn't a nice looking email, please develop one. And I will say this, I'm going to use myself as an example. So back in high school, way back in the day, I was a senior and I was applying for lots and lots of scholarships. And I didn't know any better. And it wasn't until my counselor dragged me into the office and she's like, we need to have a conversation about your resume. And I said, why? She goes, are you really sending out your resume with this email address? And my email address was who'syourdaddy34@aol.com. So again, I didn't know any different. That was my screen name, whatever. And I had to change my name. And I think it made all the difference because she's like, you need to change this right away and redo your resume. And she didn't realize that she had me send out all these resumes with that email address on there. So typical fashion, and pretty much what a lot of people use is like first initial, last name at X, Y, and Z, right? So after that, I developed dsistiaga@hotmail.com. So, and now it's actually my Gmail. It's actually my work email. So it's a common thing that I've stuck with throughout the years. So if you have and I always tell my students this, so if you have Indian Princess or Res Baller or Native Hottie or something, please don't use those email addresses. Find something that's a little bit more appropriate and more professional. Typically, your Natalia, Rudy, and Carol, do they have UA email addresses? No? Okay, well, when you get into college and you create your UA net ID, which you should be going to the U of A, if they have a UA net ID, you want to develop it and make it, again, appropriate. Think about the long term. You're going to be applying to internships, you're going to be applying to scholarships and jobs. Your college or your university email is obviously one that you should definitely consider using. And 34% lack of quantifiable results. So your resume, as you're getting into your industry, as you're getting into your future, and you're throwing out some statistics in your resume, folks want to be able to see that you've gained some sort of results. So like the example that I showed you earlier, I was a part of this community advisory board in our community in South Tucson. We achieved 80% vaccination rate. That's a quantifiable measurement. All right, as we're wrapping up for tonight. So not in the whole sense, but for this presentation. So how do I get started, right? That's the biggest thing. I don't even know what to do. So gathering, you've already started the process by just engaging in that short activity that we just did, your intake. Gather your information first. Your personal inventory is really a great start, because the more information that you can do and outline about yourself, the more it's gonna be easier for you to put down on paper as a resume. Draft. That's the second part of the process. So start with your headers, and we'll talk about headers right now, and draft it up. Pay attention to your formatting and the language that you are using. Again, we're going to talk about that right now, but create your draft. Again, it's just a draft. And then refining. So as you're going through the resume process, have someone edit, somebody that you trust, our folks at NASEP are definitely a resource. Myself is going to be a resource to be able to give you honest feedback and be able to guide you in the right direction. Have someone edit and don't be afraid. Again, we become vulnerable, especially if we're not used to talking about ourselves, but that's okay. That's why when you're going through the revision process and you give it to somebody who you trust, they're going to have a conversation with you. What are you trying to say? And help you create the words or the phrases that you need to be able to get that on paper. And again, help you be the best that you can be. This is a part of the process again, so don't be too scared of that. I get nervous and I usually get timid about putting my resume out there, but you know what? It's all part of the process and being able to get that feedback. So yeah, even as you get older, it doesn't stop. Always find a trusted individual to be able to take a look at all of your information. So looking again to the future, so just keep going. Your resume is going to be an ongoing effort. John, did you have something or did somebody? No. Okay, so your resume is going to be
Just
ongoing.
real quick while you're
Oh,
backing up resume or in it. Can you hear?
John, you sound like a robot. Oh, okay. That's okay, John. We'll get you in. So your resume is an ongoing effort. Again, the more you invest, the better off you will be. And then just lastly, again, I wanted just to be able to throw my information out there so you all have it. My email address is there and then my LinkedIn profile because I wanted to get spiffy and change it up. So here's a link to my website, my LinkedIn profile. And if you don't know, LinkedIn is like becoming the new like online resume. People are like actively recruiting on that site for everything. So yeah. Any questions before we kind of jump into some examples?
Daniel, I just wanted to say thank you to you. I feel like I feel like resumes, to talk about them, it can be challenging, I feel. And yet I feel like you really had a very kind of simple, succinct presentation that got across a lot of information for the students to kind of think about and to consider, and left folks in a great place to kind of draft, just to put together a draft of what a resume could look like. That's the first, that's oftentimes the first and most challenging step, is just putting that first draft together. And then being able to get feedback can be another challenge, but you've got people through NASEP and also that are coming in to support, as we're seeing today, that are willing to help you with this. So again, Daniel, great presentation, loved it, and really appreciate your presentation of it as well.
Thank you.
Yo, Danny, can you hear me now?
Yeah, John, we can hear you.
All right. Sorry, I put in my earbuds, so I think that's probably why. No, I was going to mention a part about where you mentioned kind of backing up your resume with that additional page. And this is part of editing it too. Make sure you check all the requirements that you need to submit. If you're submitting, whatever you're submitting for applications, for scholarships or jobs, make sure that you put all the required documents in the resume too, or make sure you upload it. I know, and I'll use a real example too. Myself and Danny were on a scholarship committee. We had the best serving student. They scored all 5s and 10s on our rubrics, and they forgot to add their resume, and we couldn't select them because they forgot that one vital required document that all the other students turned in. Although the student was a lot better in all these different areas, we couldn't select them because we had to be fair. And that's a real life situation that happens, not just here, but in employers and different college settings and different admissions process. So just make sure you turn in everything that's required.
Thank you, John. Super important. I can't tell you how many times that's happened. Rudy, did you want to jump in?
I was just gonna mention, kind of on the same line of thought is just, of course, we're jumping into what we're using resumes for, but like scholarship applications, things like that. And I just share the unfortunate story that I had a scholarship through the Hispanic Scholarship Fund, and I was getting it every year. All I had to do was reapply. And there was one year where I got to where I was sending it off the day that it was due. And I got to there was traffic, and I got to the post office too late.
Oh no.
I still sent it. I put in a call the next day and I said, is there any way you'll consider this? I hit traffic, and I did not. And so that year I lost out on $1,000 because I was like 5-7 minutes late to the post office. But when it comes to kind of giving now, unfortunately, I've got a really good example of why deadlines are important and why we have to kind of work to meet those deadlines, because you could be 1 minute off and then you could be out of consideration for an opportunity. Making sure your materials are all collected and submitted, like John mentioned, and then hitting those timelines, those deadlines, and hopefully not waiting till the day of like I did, but instead kind of hitting that deadline even earlier.
Thank you, Rudy. Okay, so I know that we're a little bit pressed for time, so I'm just going to go through some brief examples, and I will preface and say this. The realm of resumes is changing. So as there are probably some traditionalists in the room who want to just see a clear-cut, straight-up resume, but as things are progressing, now into a more digital age, things are becoming more I guess, aesthetically pleasing. They're more graphic in nature. They're more eye appealing. And I'm just going to kind of give you some examples, but I'm going to start out with a more basic approach. So all these handouts I have shared with Natalia and Carol, so they can be able to provide to you as well. So that way you all can see them. And can you all see my screen? All right, cool. So this is one that I like to share with all my students. It's pretty much just a handout. This resume handout pretty much outlines all the basic points that you want to hit on your resume when you're developing your resume. So you should start out with your name. For those of you that are unsure, you should go with your government name. That's just the way it's going to be. Nicknames like Pookie, and in my case, Dewey, don't necessarily run. So I always got to go by Daniel. Your educational background, because you're still in high school, you can definitely provide your GPA. You can provide your ACT or your SAT scores if possible. That's something to always consider. Academic awards or achievements, extracurricular activities, things that you're involved with, any community service and involvement. And I will say this. So sometimes community service can get a bad rap and say, well, you know what? I wasn't locked up. I don't have to do community service. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about things like different activities that you're volunteering for that you're not necessarily getting paid for. So if you serve like at a community feast, or you're volunteering for your nation's parade, or, fair, or helping out with Earth Day, or you're volunteering to help put out food or serve the elders or things of that nature. All of those considered are community service. It's just the way that they call it. So you don't have to have that kind of a background to be afraid to be considered, community service. It's really just something that you use. You do an activity that you engage in that isn't necessarily paid for. And John has a really good example. Even if you're involved with the Tribal Youth Council, that's always something to definitely put involved. Your work experience, and then if you're fortunate enough to have a job, your volunteer or your work experience should be along those lines of places that you've worked, things that you've gotten paid for, or in this case, sometimes you maybe land an internship or a job shadowing. This could potentially go under that as well as work experience. So you want to be able to add those too. And then I'm provided in this handout, please excuse the oldness. Actually, this was given to me back in 2007. So this is like, has some years on it. But this is pretty much what a basic resume format would look like. So again, your name is the main focal point on top, address, your information, your zip code, and an email address. Your educational background, so like your name of your high school, where you went to school, your ACT, GPA, any of that information you would like to include. Any academic achievements, extracurricular activities, any clubs or officer positions that you may hold, community service, if you do volunteer work, you're involved with your church, your work experience and career goals. You can definitely include those information on there. Formatting your resume can in this way, it's pretty simple. You can do resume builders like in Microsoft Word. They're there to help you out. Sometimes it can get a little tedious. So what I like to do is just start basically on a blank page and then just start kind of working your way down and using bullet formatting. It works the easiest. Anybody have any questions on this handout or any questions on this foundational like resume format? Any comments? We are going to go ahead and move on. So let me go ahead and stop sharing my screen really quick. Another one that I wanted to be able to show you is this is just like another resume template, and this is going to be provided to you as well. So here's another example. Can you all see this one? Alrighty. So this is another way of just kind of putting it out there. So your first and last name, again, highlighted is the examples. So for this one, I chose Steve Rogers, Captain America, 1@gmail.com. So his information is there. His, again, his information is in this, in progress, an associate of science and business administration at TOCC. Your experience. So here's an example, like this gentleman was a district youth worker in the South District. And so they just put some straight up information, some skills. So language skills, he's bilingual in Tohono and English and has a basic knowledge of Spanish. Computer skills, he's proficient in Microsoft Office, Genzapar, which is the TOCC operating system. And then just some examples. So he was the president of Student Senate at TOCC and then a South District representative. So this is another template for you all to just kind of maybe build your resume off of. There's this one. I want to share this information with you because I want you also to think in terms of a different light when you're considering the verbiage or the things that you're wanting to put on your resume. So turning in your lived experiences into a professional language. So things in your daily life can be applied to your resume, things that you do on a normal day-to-day basis. So let's say you're taking care of siblings, grandparents, little cousins, cooking for the family. Your language for those can be turned into like caregiving, ensure safety, manage daily meals if you're cooking, right? You're responsible, you're engaging, you've prepared food, you develop your culinary skills because you might just be a master chef in the making, which is totally fine. And let's say you're herding sheep, your family's farming, you're selling Indian food and goods. So you're engaging in culture, you're sustaining local food practices, building up cultural knowledge, strengthening practices, and even you're building up your nation, so nation building. If you're working on vehicles, fixing up the shed or the house, you're doing construction work, you're doing applying mechanical skills, you're developing your automotive skills, woodworking, problem solving, craftsmanship, all those things are things to consider in that way. If you're working with horses or cows, there's this term called husbandry. It's a fun word. Field work, beginning equine knowledge and care, skilled at handling animals, livestock, and even maybe like basic first aid for animals. going to a ceremony, powwow, nation fair, walking in parades. So you're participating in cultural activities, you're community gathering, supporting traditional ways of being, you're building up native tradition by practicing your culture, representing your community. Let's say you sell stuff on the side of the road or at the flea market or like the vendors squares, they may call it, or the parking lot, like they used to call it back in the day. So you're engaging in entrepreneurship. You know, if your family's selling food, you're creating your own business, right? You're developing your accounting skills. You're dealing with customers, so customer satisfaction, customer service, communication, bartering skills. If you're trading, like, hey, I'll trade you this popover for that set of earrings. You're making some bartering. You're participating in local economics, right? Because you're trying to again provide or get income and then be able to give back to the local community in terms of that way. Let's say you clean the house or you took out the trash, so you're maintaining the interior environment. You're preparing waste for appropriate disposal. Maybe you cut the lawn, you mowed the grass, or you trim the trees or the bushes. So you maintain outdoor environments, you handle tools and perform safe practices in outdoor maintenance. Anything, and I just put this on here, anything that you can think of that you do on a normal basis, Google it. There are ways to phrase things. So Google can be a useful tool in this sense. But I wanted to be able to provide this to you because it gives you a better of a cultural context, not just your typical, like, I did clerical office work or things of that nature, things that you do on a lived experience, your daily life, your day-to-day routine. Those all can be manifested and prepared in a professional setting. And then
Danny.
lastly, oh, go ahead.
That is John. I was going to mention, even off your previous jobs too, your worst job that you ever had, there's transferable skills in there. One thing I do for the Thought Awesome Nation is workforce development. And any job you've ever held, whether it was something that you really didn't enjoy or you really enjoyed it, whatever it may be, there's skills in there, just like what Danny mentioned right now, that you can pinpoint and highlight those. And I use a personal example when I'm talking to our youth all the time. In college, I used to work at a call center. I hated it so much. Used to dread going to work, and I used to have to make cold calls. But what I found out later on is that how I build up my communication skills. Just starting a conversation out of pitch black, out of nowhere, those kinds of things, and kind of database management. Those things you don't realize you're doing every day. There's something in every job that you've had that you can list on a resume, and it can help build to your strengths on a resume too.
I love it. Thank you, John. So lastly, I'm showing you a crafty one. So this is really creative. I was telling your staff earlier that I went crazy and had fun with this, but so these are some new examples. Resumes, again, are becoming more visual in their layout, So as you can tell, this doesn't follow your traditional format, but this is something that is now more eye appealing. And to some employers, if you're especially like looking to go into like graphic artistry or, advertising or marketing, this is something to say like, okay, this person has a skill set just by the way that they're presenting themselves. So this is something as an example, and I'm just going to show you one. So I worked on mine today. I was a good little boy, and I worked on mine today. But I just kind of did some fun things with this one, and it was just a really cool experience because I had yet to work on any of this information here. So just has my education, a brief snapshot of my volunteer, and then my work experience. So the one thing that I want to point out that I really, really loved about all of this are my skills. So you can get really crafty in this one and create like a rating scale, a Likert scale, rating yourself like between 1 and 5 on just different skills that you have. So I put some on here that I feel that I have developed as a professional. So like outreach, recruitment, creating guided pathways from high school to college, time management, cultural competency, and public speaking. So I was able to kind of just rate myself and say, okay, I'm kind of good at these things. And then lastly, I threw in just an example of like a cover letter. So this isn't the best cover letter, but it's something just to kind of work off of. Again, always developing, always room for improvement. So I just wanted to be able to show you all what these things can look like. As in the new age, things are becoming more visual, and I guess, a little bit more interactive. This is just a fun format that we're starting to see in the resume world. But with that being said, if nobody else has any questions, again, I know that signature is all kinds of fancy. Trust me, that's not my signature. My signature kind of looks like that, but it's not anywhere near that amazing and clean. But yeah, I have given all of these examples to your team here, so they would be able to disseminate it to all you all or send it out to all you all. If you have any questions, my email is attached to majority of these, so if you have any questions, just shoot me an email. Yeah.
Danny, are
Danny?
you able
Oh.
to put up your the last slide you had from your presentation? So
Yeah.
if the students have so the students can take a screenshot of it to be able to get it,
Yeah. Let me-
contact you. That would be great. Thank you.
Give me a second. And and to answer your question, Carol, there are plenty of places to be able to look for these different resumes, templates. So actually, I'm just going to be honest. You know where I found this one? Canva. So canva.com has just been an amazing space to be able to just do simple graphic work. And it's a great tool, and it's free. So if you ever want to just utilize the service to be able to use one of their templates, and that's where I found that graphic resume. I felt all fun trying to edit it. But
Daniel,
that
you also use that for the PowerPoint presentation? I thought your PowerPoint was really nice. The presentation slide deck that you created was really nice.
that's not my work, it's Canvas.
Okay, but it's on
But
Canva,
yeah,
though.
no, you can make some really cool things out of Canva, flyers and whatnot. But for sure, these presentations, they're super interactive and I really like them. Let me see. I think there's one another. Oh, did I show you? Did I share my screen?
Not yet.
Oh, sorry, it's been pulled up. I've just been like watching it, and there you go. So if you all need to take a screenshot of it or write it down. My bad.
Danny, thank you so much for presenting this. I know that when we approached AIA, so you and John about this, you guys were really excited, and I think that showed through with your presentation and how you broke it down. So I hope that the students enjoyed it too. And to the students, they've been talking about the great resources and things that they do within their club, which includes the scholarship. And so let me tell you, they have seen a lot of personal statements. They've seen a lot of resumes. And so they're great people to get tips from on how you can stand out in a pool of applicants. And so definitely use their emails and everything to contact them if you have questions, because they're the folks to ask. So yeah, just want to reiterate that. And then for those of you who are maybe thinking of applying to the U of A, they do have a scholarship, so keep that in mind. And so I'm going to cough. And so I think it's in Scholarship Universe, but you can also check their website and things. They even have like Instagram and their other socials to be able to keep up with what they're doing for the community in Tucson, but also for the campus community as well.
Thank you, Carol. And I'm gonna be very honest with you. I'm gonna be vulnerable with you all for a second. So I'm nervous about mine, but this is actually a CV. This is my CV. And you can kind of see exactly how mine is set up. I'm not all fancy with all those fun tricks and tips, but mine pretty much has like a full outline of everything that I've pretty much done. And the reason why I keep a full CV is that way, whenever I need to, I can just essentially plug and chug it somewhere where I need to make a resume work. So that way I'm not necessarily starting from scratch, but I'm able to create something and then just copy and paste. Copy and paste can be your best friend when you're developing these. I also want to let you all know, and this is a tip that and something that I've always taken pride in. Please, on your resumes, as a reclamation of your indigeneity, put in your tribal affiliation. I think it's appropriate. So if you belong to a tribe, if you're a descendant, however the case may be, how you identify, you should be able to include that information in your resume. Again, it's telling your story and who you are. So I, by all means, would definitely recommend it. And I don't want you just to judge me or anything, but I have my education, my experience. Basically, this is kind of like my high school resume. I've just kind of built off of it. So the same foundation. So I have information on here on just pretty much all of my internships, my work experience, my leadership involvement, teaching and training experience, publications and presentations, certifications, and different memberships. So again, these are all like, if I ever need to pull from them, what does that mean? Where and how, you know, what is it actually looking for? So again, I just wanted to share that with you. So don't judge me. Just kidding. We're in a non-judgment zone, okay?
Thanks, Danny. I think that what he showed is really important because from what he just showed you, that's him taking inventory, right? He's taking inventory of everything that he's done. And if he's applying for a job, he may not send that full list to wherever he's applying, but he would take out the important points, look at the job description and say, I think that these experiences most highlight where I did the things that they're looking for in this job. And so, yeah, definitely that's what he means by just copying and pasting it and making sure that it's tailored to the specific thing that he's applying for. So yes, no judgment. I think it looks great.
Yeah, and to that, Carol, thank you for pointing it out, because that intake, again, that you could see that's like 5 or 6 pages long, but that's just like an ongoing master list. Again, that's not usually what I turn in, but unless they're requiring a CV, but for the most part, they're asking for just a resume. And then, you know, I just, you know, be able to pull it and plug it in, but it's an ongoing thing, an ongoing process. And as you're adding, I just updated it today because I just did a diversity, equity, inclusion training. I was a trainer on that. So I added that experience, and then just a couple advisory boards that I'm now a part of. So all of it is just like an ongoing process. And again, I hadn't taken that up since like August, looked at it since August, but things have happened in the past 2 months. So I needed to add them as well. So a resume is pretty much, sorry, Carol, I just saw your thing and I just mentioned it briefly, but CV is more, it's called a curriculum vitae. It's more or less like if you're going in, I want to say, Rudy, like maybe you can help me on this, but like going into academia, right? It's pretty much a full listing of like everything, grants that you may have been awarded, projects that you are a part of, presentations, publications. It's a little bit more in depth. Rudy?
Yeah, I would say, I think you gave a great description of it. A lot of times at the university, I feel at university or community colleges, faculty members who are kind of in that teaching role, oftentimes I think have curriculum vitas where it is more extensive. I think maybe a resume doesn't, well, resume could, I think, include presentations and things like that. But in particular, I think the things that distinguish a curriculum vitae might be presentations, publications, and then probably courses that are taught might be things that might distinguish a curriculum vitae from a resume. But I've got to be honest and be vulnerable too, that I don't know that I know all the distinctions between the two, but I think those are some things that I've heard before.
Thank you, guys. I always just thought one was longer than the other.
Well, one is really, I think the biggest distinction I feel like is academia, right? And at the university or what is ATS? Anybody know what ATS is? But yeah, I feel like is more used in academia, but typically a resume is the one that's shorter and more accepted other places.
I always felt it was a condensed version of your CV.
Yeah, there you go. Applicant tracking system resume. Oh, okay. Can somebody answer Autumn in that one? Applicant tracking system. Is it Twanisha?
Yeah,
Are you
You pronounced it right.
okay? Can you elaborate a little bit more? Like, are you looking to apply like online and looking for like an online resume? Is that what you're thinking?
Oh, I'm trying to see if if I can have that based like on like my skill set or something like that. If I can make it better.
Oh.
So what I'm picking up from just like a brief scan, and probably people could find more better kind of advice. But sometimes if you're applying for a position and there's going to be an AT system handling the resume, sometimes the system it's like a computer program that's scanning for specific words. So if I was putting out a position that was specifically on outreach, I might put in 5 words that I feel are outreach words, and then it's going to scan the resume to find those words. If somebody submits a resume that, and Daniel talked about this before, is that sometimes you want to customize your resume to the job description. So if I submitted the same job description that I submitted when I would, or the same resume that I had when I worked at Peter Piper Pizza for the outreach position, I might not get looked at because I didn't talk about those outreach skills. Instead, it might just kind of have my pizza experience on there. But if instead I said that in that position, I was outreaching to customers, all of a sudden there might be a better match. So that might be more about knowing if you're submitting a resume to an ATS system, what might be some tricks to keep in mind, which I think is really that point that Daniel made, speak to the position.
was that helpful, Tanisha?
Yeah, that was helpful.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's something that maybe hiring managers would use to look through and filter resumes, but not necessarily what an applicant would use to create a resume. Is that what you meant, Rudy?
Yeah, that it's a way that a company, so like an initial step that helps to decrease the number of applicants. And so if they are using that system, it's important to know that, so that hopefully your application doesn't get kind of weeded out to some extent.
Cool.
Cool.
Are there any questions from any other students or any comments?
I'm gonna pop something in the chat that is from Resume Genius. And what I would do is I would look at this to just see, like, is there more information there, especially for Tanisha, who asked the question about the applicant tracking system. I'm always hesitant to give out kind of websites that aren't from colleges or universities, because of the fact that maybe on that website somewhere it says, like, for $5.99, we'll create a resume for you. Never pay for this stuff. Sit down with folks, get help from counselors, get help from NASEP staff, get help from presentations like today. But at the very least, there might be some information there, again, that's helpful on ATS resumes.
Any other questions? comment?
And I put in there too, just to pay attention. So in different trainings that I've been on regarding resumes, there are different versions or types of resumes. So there are things like a scannable resume and then a printable resume and then just your basic resume. So I think what works with those ATS or those softwares are things like scannable resumes, because those keywords will make all the difference. And that's what those automated processes look for, those keywords that jump out, and then they're also submitted in various file formats. They're not necessarily always in like a .doc or a .pdf. So that's getting into the weeds though, and I think that's where Twanisha, for your question specifically, I think that when if you are looking to develop something along those nature, we can work with you on an individual basis and be able to get you in the right direction.
So with that being said, are there any more questions or comments that we want to ask?
Daniel, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be, because I don't know that I sat in on all of the NASEP workshops. Is this the first time that the NASEP students have had a chance to interact with you? I don't know if you might say anything about anything else about the Donna Atom Community College as just another, you mentioned earlier that you thought that students should be coming to the University of Arizona. We greatly appreciate that plug. But I know that you also feel very strongly about the Donna Atom Community College. And I didn't know if you might kind of share just a little bit with the students on that.
Oh, for sure. Carol, when are you all going to come out here? No. So prior to like the pre-pandemic, I know NASEP would come out to the college, and it was always a really great experience. So Thon Community College is located 60 miles west of Tucson. And so we're out on the Thon Nation. We are one of 37 tribal colleges and universities within the United States, and we are one of 3 in the state of Arizona that are fully accredited. There is a 4th one that is currently under TOCC as they're developing, but there is Dene College, there is Navajo Technical University, Thon Community College, and San Carlos Apache College, which is in the process of getting fully accredited. And as of right now, they are under TOCC, and so they are considered TOCC students, but we are in the process of helping them get established and fully accredited. TOCC, just like any other tribal college, we are affordable, and we offer 2-year programs, business, liberal arts, science. I think it's pretty much all of them, and they all have different programs of study under them. So like natural science, let's see, Thon Studies is a program, community public health, pre-professional nursing, all of those kind of fall under the various programs. But yeah, TOCC has the most affordable tuition in the state of Arizona, $34.25 a credit, so $34.25. But if you are identifying as a Native American and you are enrolled, you qualify for free tuition. So that is something that is also continuing on at TOCC. But we're a small tribal college. Over the course of the pandemic, we have tripled our enrollment, but usually we're sitting around 300 to 400 students. At the height of the pandemic, we were around 900, almost 1,000. So, but we have students from all over. And while we are Thon Community College, we primarily serve the Thon Nation and its members, but we welcome students from all over. So we have students from across the United States joining us, across the state of Arizona, joining in online and in person. And then, yeah, we are a public institution, so anybody can come to school with us, and we welcome students from all walks of life.
Thanks, Danny. And I had another question, because I know that there's a couple people who are interested in like the health sciences. Are you all going to be doing your Future Health Leaders Camp, and should students expect to apply for that?
Oh, yeah, we want to so bad. We're in the process of putting together our proposal. So that is something that if we are able to get it done and approved before the end of the semester, probably early spring semester is when we're going to be getting out applications and getting students involved with that. But that's a really awesome program. The last couple of years before the pandemic, we have had an on-campus experience at TOCC, and we just immerse students in everything, all things health related, really exploratory in nature, and just allowing students to just look at various careers in health, whether it's public health, nursing, dentistry, becoming a physician assistant, going into becoming a doctor, behavioral therapy, massage therapy, physical therapy, all of them. So how the world of health is so vast that there's plenty of careers to be able to be explored. So
Thanks, Danny. And for those people interested in public health, Danny does some lectures for TOCC in the public health area. He did his master's in public health and did it in the administrative portion of public health, right, Danny?
Yep.
So I know that speaks to Autumn, because Autumn wants to go into public health, but open to anybody else who may be interested in picking his brain about experiences and whatnot.
Yeah, and then for all of you that are still, you all are still in high school, right? So consider dual enrollment as an option in the spring semester. Any local college that you may be near, if you're interested at TOCC, if you're within the bounds of Arizona, we can figure out an opportunity for dual enrollment. And all the tribal colleges in the state, we pretty much, tuition is generally covered. At TOCC specifically, we cover the cost of dual enrollment for all of our students. And you're able to take a class, get it knocked out of the way, and get it applied to your major at wherever you plan to go. So
Daniel, I was gonna ask a question out of ignorance on my side, because I'm just not as aware, but I know that TOCC also is a residential community college, if I'm not mistaken. For the other tribal colleges and universities here in the state, are all of them residential, or is that something that distinguishes TOCC?
No, all three tribal colleges do offer residence life. We have a very small dormitory. I think the most that we can fit on campus is 36 people. But that has changed a little bit due to COVID restrictions. But dorms will be opening up again in the spring semester. So we will be welcoming students back on campus starting in spring. But yes, all three tribal colleges do offer residence life.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
Awesome. We're doing a lot of plugs because it's always great to share resources.
Love it.
So,
go ahead. No, I was just going to say, well, in my role at TOCC, aside from the American Indian alumni, I do teach public health courses. So I'm teaching currently, and I do teach in the spring semester. But I do a lot of work with our high school students. Outreach and dual enrollment I oversee the dual enrollment program for the college, and just a bunch of workshops and whatnot. And I am my role at TOCC. If you all do need help with anything or help navigating the college process, we always like to tell students that going directly to the university from high school is always great. And that's something that we always want our students to do. But if there's a curiosity about going to a community college first, then going to a university and transferring over, definitely, by all means, we want to be a part of that journey. The tribal college routes are going through a community college route. You basically do your first 2 years of school at a community college and then transfer over to the university. So you're right around your junior year and finish up your last 2 years at the university. So however it may work out, I'm here as a resource, as a community resource, but also in a professional setting as well. So whatever you all need, I am here.
Thanks, Danny. So I had a question for the next session. Should students, if they haven't already, begin to take the inventory, create their resumes, and prepare to have feedback for the next session, or have their resumes prepared so they can receive feedback? How will we proceed for the next one?
So what I was thinking was having the students get the PowerPoint that we have that Danny provided to us, get those first initial lists going, get a rough draft of their first one, the first basic resume, and then going in, having a small presentation, a couple of activities, and then going into having their mentor look over the resume to get the feedback. That was my idea. That could change from here to the next time, because I think that next one is not until the 14th of November. So if that works for everyone, that then we can like settle upon that, but we can talk about that after the fine details. But students, there is going to be a part 2 to this session of resume building. So for the students that are here, make sure that you did your inventory, that you start looking at the handouts that will be up soon, that will get to you soon, so that you're ready for part 2, session 2. Sound good? Thumbs up? Awesome. All right. So with that being said, any more questions that anyone has for Danny or John, myself, Rudy, or Carol? Anything about the one-on-ones or the projects, your
I like
geoscience
your
project?
makeup today.
Oh, thank you.
And he's like, thank you.
We're from the same tribe, so we got the same glow. All right, so with that, we're running over time, which is fine, because that's worked into it. And students, if you have any other questions, have a shout out, let Carol or myself or the student staff or Danny or John know, and you can go. I will let you release you. And
can we have the students unmute and
oh,
give a big
yes,
thank you to our presenters? So if you can unmute
yes,
yourself, and then we'll do it on the count of 3. So start unmuting. All right,
unmute,
on the count of
unmute.
3. 1, 2, 3. Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you, John.
Thank you both.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Have a good night.